You're listening to The Bounding Box, where we talk about web development, geo development, and everything in between. All right, welcome to The Bounding Box. All right, so today I got a great guest here. I got Josh Peterson. So Josh, please tell us who you are, what you do, what's your problem?
Yeah, hey Renee. First, thanks for having me. So my name's Josh Peterson. I'm a development lead in Esri's professional services division. Um, my problem, I guess my most pressing problem is probably how to dispose of a lot of concrete in an environmentally safe way.
You doing some
I'm doing a bunch of
work?
yeah, I'm doing a bunch of renovations in my house right now, and this weekend's going to be all demoing a big concrete floor, and I'm not exactly sure how to get it out of the house
Oh,
and
wow,
somewhere
man.
else quite yet. So I'll be figuring that out. Um, but I guess like at work, maybe it's more what you're talking about. So um, at work, my problems really depend on what problems my team or our customers are facing on any given day, which is challenging, I guess. I don't even know what my problems are when I start my day typically.
It's
Um,
always fun, right?
yeah, for sure. I know you have some experience kind of in a more services oriented role, but I found over my kind of career at Esri that a lot of people don't even know that we have a professional services division,
Yeah.
and it kind of means something different as a developer, right? Um, I think the easiest way to describe what it is that it's the consulting arm of Esri. So like we're out there working with customers on projects, implementing solutions and all that kind of stuff. Um, another way to kind of think about it is Esri is obviously a software products company. We build products like ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS dashboards and the ArcGIS JavaScript SDK. But we're also a services company. You can think of things like tech support or our education services division, where we have educators going out and training people and all that kind of stuff. And then professional services is part of that group too, where the product really is the people, right?
Yeah.
It's us as developers or technical consultants or system engineers or whatever it is, just kind of going out and being the product and solving problems for our customers.
So I guess basically whenever a customer either doesn't have the in-house availability or something like that to build something up, or maybe it's a complex project in some way or something like that, then they come to the Esri's professional services and ask, hey, can you help us out here? We either need to implement one of your COT solutions, or we need something custom that we just don't have the time to do on our own type of thing, right? So you work pretty closely with these customers to get that stuff done.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we have to go through the whole, what is the problem you're trying to solve, and let's gather up the requirements of how we're going to actually solve it and work together. A lot of times our customers don't necessarily know uh, sort of what pieces of the ArcGIS system to bring together in order to solve the problem, and so that's a big part of our job. As a developer in professional services, I'm kind of in this really fun place where, you know, Esri's, the ArcGIS sort of COTS platform is amazing and does amazing things, but when a customer needs something very specific or niche or cutting edge, we really get to live in that like cutting edge space where we're out there pushing the platform forward. And a lot of times the stuff we do in professional services, uh, makes its way back into products because we go out there and kind of prove the next best thing.
That's really cool because I do get a lot of questions that come through me from either yourself or other people in professional services on like, hey, no, I'm trying to do X, Y, and Z in the JavaScript Maps SDK, and I'm not sure how to do it, or this doesn't seem to work. So yeah, there's a lot of you guys are really pushing a lot of things that we can do. Like, I need to show a million features on the map. Well, how do I do it? Well, crap. All
Yep.
right, let's see what we can figure out to make that work. Right.
Yep. We have a fun relationship with product teams because we're always out there breaking things and always out there pushing the limits and things like that. So it's great. It's a great relationship.
What's one of the I guess you can't really get into too much detail, but what's one of the hardest things you've had to solve working in professional services, like a problem that's come up that maybe made it into a product, right? Maybe it was something that you guys kind of proved work and then made it back into online or something like that.
That's a really good question. Yeah, I think maybe the easiest answer there, I'll take the easy way out here, is now a formal product called ArcGIS Monitor. So like ArcGIS
Ah,
Monitor was a PS project many years ago, right? And customers wanted better insight into their ArcGIS Enterprise deployment. how
Mm.
people are using it and which services are being performant or not performant and all that kind of stuff. And we solved that problem for them. We probably maybe I don't know if we broke license agreements by like cracking open the hood of ArcGIS server and things like that, maybe.
Yeah.
But we went out and solved the problem, and then other customers were like, "Hey, that's really cool. We want that too." And eventually, there's enough momentum there.
Yeah.
And a number of products have grown up that way. A lot of our sort of like industry focused things like ArcGIS for maritime and aviation and defense and those kinds of products, pretty much all were born that way. So there's a
Nice.
pretty good pattern for it.
Yeah, that's another group does some cool stuff too. Is the solutions group because they at one point they gave me like a deck of cards, like playing cards that have all the apps they've worked on. It was like a massive like 300 card
I
deck.
remember those cards.
Man, that's insane. I didn't realize that they had like made that many various apps for people out there, right? And that they're not just for one customer, but like solutions that can be used by multiple people and stuff. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, the magic of ArcGIS is that it's so generic in a way, right? It can solve the world's GIS problems or geospatial problems, but
Yeah.
that's also it makes it a little hard to wield sometimes because someone working at a city government looking to inspect trees has this like mountain of software ready for them to use, but they just want to do this really small thing. And so the solutions team is amazing in building those kind of tailor-made solutions that are different configurations of our larger software stack.
Yeah. And I guess a lot of
Sure.
times you have to work with a lot of third party clients or third party APIs to kind of integrate stuff in, right? I mean, have you ever had to tackle like getting GraphQL stuff to work
Oh yeah.
with mapping stuff and everything?
Oh yeah. I, like kind of going back to being a developer in PS, I think one of the most challenging things is the sort of the cadence of work, right? Like we're working with customers on projects on a much shorter timeline than if you were working on a product
Hmm.
right? So, and we often are working with multiple customers at one time. So, plenty of times throughout the years, I've been working with maybe 5 different customers. One of them I'm writing React, one of them I'm writing vanilla JavaScript or Dojo or something because they're a little old school in Web App Builder maybe. One of them is all Python, right? It's not even a web development project. And the other one, they're like pushing the limits with GraphQL and Supabase, and they want to do all these cool integrations with WordPress or something like that, right? And so I kind of love it. I don't think it's for everyone because it's very fast paced and you're context switching all the time. But it's for me, I felt that it's allowed me to really like accelerate my learning throughout my career
Yeah.
because I'm maybe not getting the depth of working in React and Redux for 6 years straight all the time, but I'm learning enough and then kind of moving on to the next project and learning something else. And every project I get to kind of collect up the skills that I learned on the last project and bring them along with me. But I get a blank slate. So I don't have to like, I don't always have to live with all of the decisions I've made on past
Yeah.
projects, like you do on a product sometimes.
That's fun though. I gotta admit, I kind of miss work doing stuff like that when I used to do consulting work and stuff. Going from one project to another, and you jumping from framework to framework and environment to environment and stuff. It's stressful, and it's no, there's a lot to it, but it's a lot of fun. It really
It
is.
is. It is. And there's the people aspect of it too, like I've worked at Esri for 12 years now, but I kind of feel like I've worked for like 20 or 30 different companies in those 12 years
Yeah,
because it's not just the different tech on all the projects, it's also different people from different parts of the world solving different problems, bringing different perspectives. It's yeah, that's probably my favorite part of the job of being like a developer in services.
and then on the product end, I mean, there's a lot of feedback that comes through from groups like professional services because like I said, we do a ton of testing and stuff on like the JavaScript SDK and everything, and we do all this other bits, and we have sanity tests. But until it's in like the hand of like people using it, you don't really know what might break and what might not until they integrate it into like their own workflows and stuff. So all that feedback comes back from teams like yours are great because they just help us make everything else better.
Yeah, no, and it's like one of the most rewarding things to be that developer in PS and then provide that feedback to products and then see, the next release come out with a fix for that or a new feature that accounts for what you were prototyping or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So we feel like, it kind of makes us feel like an extension of the product team sometimes.
What are some trends you've seen in development over the years, right? Working on all these different projects and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I think like everything in the world of software development like comes in cycles. It's even trends, right? Like, it's all like cyclical. Like everything that's old is new again at some point in time. When I started, um, the JavaScript API was in version 2. It was kind of like a fun thing, but not really the thing we use to build like rich internet applications, as we used to call them, RIAs. So I was all Flex all day, every day when I started at Esri, and like MVC was king, right? Or
Yep.
MVVM if you were working in Silverlight at the time. And then when JavaScript started, taking over the world, um, JavaScript, I love JavaScript. I'm like my core identity as a full stack JavaScript developer. But when you think about it, like sometimes I think about languages like C# or Java or Swift. They're kind of like an erector set, right? There's like set pieces and like holes for screws to go into, and like you can do lots of things with them, but there are some rules to how you work with it. JavaScript is like Play-Doh, right? Like you can do anything you want with it. If you want to implement functional programming or reactive programming or build state machines or follow object-oriented patterns, like totally you can do all that kind of stuff, right? I remember when I think it was Crocker came and spoke at Dev Summit a number of years ago and talked about how much he hated the fact that they added classes to JavaScript,
Yeah, I remember
right? And like
that.
there was a whole thing where like, oh, we can do object-oriented programming in JavaScript now because they added classes. But then, well, actually, it's kind of just like syntactical sugar. It's still just fun, it's still just prototypes under the hood,
Yeah.
and we've just kind of gone in cycles like that. Even with modern frameworks like React and Vue and Svelte and all these things. Um, you know, what's old is new again all the time. We loved templates before when we had like handlebars and mustache and
Yep.
Dojo templating and things like that. And then we hated them and we wanted to do JSX. And now, Svelte and Vue and like we've got templates again for HTML. And
Yeah, right. Just
I
they
think,
look a little different now, right? I mean,
yeah, totally. And I think it's all about, for me, it's all about like not getting too entrenched in like the framework wars or the patterns wars or anything like that. It's just about understanding that every framework and every design pattern has its pros and has its cons, and like there are trade-offs, right? And I think we just kind of like get really excited about a new framework like React, and we kind of ignore the downsides of the trade-off. But then over time we get tired of those bad things,
yeah.
and then we like reach for the new shiny thing that just like inverts the trade-offs. You know what I mean?
It's like when people start getting mad at a framework, it's probably become stable, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah, exactly. The
like
more people that hate it,
exactly.
the probably the more
React's gotten a lot
popular
of
it is.
flack lately, and I'll admit I am not a fan of React, but for very different reasons. But I think a lot of flack that React's gotten recently aren't fully deserved. But I think that just shows that it's come to really become more stable in its use and everything.
Yeah,
My issues with React really have more to do with the problems they're trying to solve are problems that they created, right?
I agree with
And
that.
and
Yeah.
and I it's fine. Okay, I think it's great, and server components and stuff are great, but you're just offloading the work to somewhere else. Although that offloaded
Yes.
work now benefits everyone else that's going to access things. But it's
Yeah,
fun. It's
totally.
fun stuff.
Yeah, it's just shifting those trade-offs, right? Right. I hate to say it, but I'm kind of that guy who misses class-based React. Like for
Yeah,
whatever reason, I think maybe it's because I learned like Dojo was my first like JavaScript framework. My brain thinks in the context of these like lifecycle methods, like component did mount, component destroyed, all those kinds of things. Like I can use hooks and it's fine, but I miss like
exactly.
class-based component life cycles.
There's
Yeah.
just certain times I'm not sure if I'm using the hook correctly. I'm never quite sure if I'm use callback correctly, for example, right? And
Yeah,
then there's like you got your use effect, which you're probably using wrong anyway. But then there's use layout effect, which you probably should be using, and it's just there's a lot
totally.
to it, right? So, but
Yeah.
like I
So
said, it's all fun.
yeah, it is a lot of fun. I think like it's just remembering to like not get so sort of like bent up about the specific framework and how it does things, but like kind of step back and understand the various patterns and their trade-offs, right? Like
Yeah,
I've always admired Adi Osmani. He's a like brilliant engineer at Google. He's been on like on the internet for as long as I can remember, talking about design patterns and architecture patterns and things like that. A lot of that has culminated now in the website patterns.dev, which Adi and some others at Google run. And it's an amazing resource for anybody looking to just kind of understand like more abstract patterns in web development.
yeah.
I definitely recommend going and checking that out.
It is really good. And I actually keep it as a reference sometimes when I'm doing stuff. I'm not sure if I'm doing it correctly, right? Like I know I'm using old
Hmm.
patterns that maybe I remember using way back in the day. I'm like, no, I'm not sure if that's still something I should be doing or not. But yeah, I'm validated because it's on patterns.dev somewhere.
That's
Like,
right.
okay, I
That's
feel
right.
fine with what I'm doing. I'm good there. Um,
Yeah, that's right.
like yeah, I mean, JSX is one of those things that I'm a fan of it mostly because of TypeScript. I can type my JSX. I can't type my template strings, which is
Mm,
sad, right?
yep.
I would be
Yep.
more of a fan of like lit for web components if I could
Yeah,
type template strings, but I just can't do it.
that would
So
be cool.
I'm more of a stencil fan when it comes to web component type of work.
Yeah, I
But
totally get that. TypeScript helps. Like going back to the idea that JavaScript is like Play-Doh. Like TypeScript helps with that. Sometimes I feel like TypeScript is just like somebody like yelling at you, telling you're doing it wrong. Like you're
yeah,
forming the Play-Doh wrong. It's not like it's not really like making you do it better. It's just telling you when you're not doing it right.
that's true. That's true. Every now and then I'll get stuck in this like little cycle where I'm doing something, I'm using TypeScript, I'm working on an app, and I find that I'm spending a lot of time like working on my types for some reason, and I just stop. I'm like, okay, I'm doing something wrong if I need to spend this much time trying to figure out these types. So I step away from it. I'll just throw some any's in there here and there, maybe an unknown now and then, and work my way through it. And luckily,
Yeah,
the
totally.
language servers are pretty good at giving you suggestions of what you want to do. Or Copilot, even if you're lucky enough to be using Copilot, then you'll get some suggestions, but you got to kind of like, okay, let me verify that Copilot's correct here. It's telling me what I need to do, right?
That's right. Yeah. With Copilot, it's funny you bring that up. Just yesterday, I've been playing around with Copilot and you can like one of the things you can do with Copilot is write a comment and then let it kind of write the function for you. I had this really funny experience where I wrote like a comment that was maybe, or I don't know, it's like one line comment, and I hit return and let Copilot kind of take over, and it started writing like a novel of comments for me. Like it never actually got to the function. It just wrote like 100 lines of comments, like describing in more and more detail the thing that I was trying to get it to do. It was pretty
Oh
hilarious.
man, it is weird sometimes. AI can just be a funk sometimes. I'm telling you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So with all the work that you do and everything, Josh, how do you tackle a difficult problem, right? When you hit a wall, you hit a wall on something and you can't quite solve it. Is there anything you do other than just scream into a pillow or something like that?
Well, that's usually the first thing I think. Yeah, I think my go-to and what I sort of always talk about with my team is always be diagramming, like always be drawing things out. And it doesn't matter if it's on a piece of paper with a pen or on a whiteboard or in software like Figma or Visio or Lucidchart or whatever you want to
Yeah,
choose there. Like whatever's the like whatever provides the least amount of friction to get your like what's in your brain onto something visual. I think a lot of people will say like I'm a visual learner or I'm not a visual learner. I think we're all visual learners somewhere inside of
yeah,
us, especially us working in like geospatial. It's in the word, right? We're spatial thinkers. So like being able to draw something on paper or on a whiteboard or diagram it out in software like is always the first step I take to really understand, not only so that I understand what I'm doing, which is the first thing that it helps with, but also to make sure anyone else working on it can at least like ask questions of that visual, and then we can iterate on the visual and then come to a common understanding.
yeah. That's a great idea. And I find myself doing that quite a bit, just kind of like diagramming out a workflow. I start at point A and I need to get to point X, right? So how am I going to get there? Where am I going to go? What my decision tree going to look like? Or just, if I need to have something on the page that needs to move somewhere, how am I going to get there? So, just simple little diagrams like that. It doesn't have to be difficult, but at least lets you think through what you're trying to do, right? So I
That's
think
right.
that's a great idea to have people do
Yeah,
that.
sometimes a diagram is literally like two boxes with a line between it
Yeah.
because that's what it took drawing those two boxes with a line for you to realize that that's like the solution is actually that simple, right? But it took you to draw it out to actually realize that.
All right, Josh. So the all important question, because you're working at such a furious pace all the time, do you write your test first, last, sometimes?
Next question, maybe? No, I'm just
I,
joking. Yes, but I think yeah. So like I mentioned, right? I don't work on a product team, so the answer is going to be a little bit different. I think that the time you spend on tests, any kind of tests, unit testing, setting up linters, even before unit testing, or like integration testing, user testing, acceptance testing. It should always be done like in the context of the thing you're building and how big it is and how long it takes, right? Like I've I've participated in some hackathons in the past with like test-driven developers,
Yeah.
and like they didn't have anything to show at the end of the day. They had some really cool tests, but they didn't have a thing to show, right? They didn't actually
Yeah,
build an app.
exactly.
And like that's one end of the spectrum. And then the other end of the spectrum is just like acting like you're writing a hackathon app when you're building a big production system. Also really bad, probably worse.
And I've seen that
So
before. I've seen like some stuff come every now and then that's like no you really gotta kind of write it's usually write tests after. That's more where I'm a
yeah,
fan of, right?
yeah,
I like to get something done and then not even like unit tests. Unit tests are useful, like you said, for products. I think unit tests are great, but most important, I think, what you probably want for apps and even products is integration tests. Like you want to know that,
totally.
like a simple screenshot test of like your app. You have a final product done of your app. Like, okay, great. I'm gonna do some screenshot tests on this for various scenarios, and then as you update it, make changes based on request. You verify that it looks exactly the way it used to look. Like you
Yep,
didn't like jack up some like padding somewhere, or you're not showing a header anymore. This simple things, right? You get caught in those
totally.
kind of things.
Yeah, I for that specific kind of like snapshot testing is I think what they call that. I've used Storybook for that before, and there's actually a plugin for Storybook where you can run snapshot tests whenever you change your code, and it
Oh,
will literally
really?
just,
I haven't tried that.
yeah, check out like the DOM and do a diff of the DOM in between your two test
That's
runs. It's
cool.
actually pretty cool. Yeah, but I
Storybook's
think
been
that's
really
right.
great.
I love Storybook. I'm a huge advocate of Storybook. Yeah, and it's only gotten better over the years, and it's like supports all the frameworks now, and
Yeah.
it's really super awesome. But yeah, I think like what you're saying is absolutely right. You got to find the like style of testing or the phase of testing that provides the most value to the thing you're building, and it's different based on what
Yeah.
you're building, right?
I mean, I don't want to say tests are a waste of time because they're not. The right tests aren't a waste of time, but the wrong tests definitely.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
All right,
Yeah.
Josh. I want to be respectful of your time here. I know you got a lot to do. You got a busy day. But before I let you go, you got any tips or tricks for people listening? Doesn't even have to be geo or dev related at all. Anything you want to throw out there.
Yeah, I think maybe something I always try and talk to about like with new developers or through like the hiring process or mentorship process or anything like that is I I personally believe that like computer science or software engineering it's an applied science. Like if you just want to like learn computer science and nothing else, then like you should probably be an academic, right? Like you can go study the science of computer science, so to speak. But if you want to actually take it into the real world and solve problems, like you probably need to know a little bit about something like geography or engineering or like whatever it may be, whatever subject matter it may be. So I've heard this called, there's like this concept of T-shaped learning, right? Where you've got like a lot of shallow knowledge and then you've got like one vertical of deep, deep knowledge. And then I've heard an alternative like idea of this thing called V-shaped learning, where you actually have these like two complementary skill sets that are your sort of depth of expertise. And that can be so many different things, but knowing not only like the subject matter and then also the sort of technical skills of being a developer and how to make things happen, I think is like the sweet spot of being a developer. Because like for me, I'm a geospatial developer. You're a geospatial developer. It's a very different thing than just being a developer with no other skill set, right? So I would encourage anyone to really make sure that as a developer you don't forget about like your other skill or your other skills,
Yeah,
and how you
exactly.
want to apply that and how you actually want to change the world with your developer skills kind of thing. Um, so yeah, I think that's kind of my big thing. I guess a really easy quickie. Google Meet has this feature where you can do bi-directional screen sharing, right? With Teams, like
Ah,
we use Teams at Esri or Zoom or lots of the other things. Like one person can share their screen, and if you wanted to share your screen while I'm sharing my screen, I have to stop and we have to do the whole song and dance where you're
yeah.
going to share your screen. With Google Meet, you can actually both share your screens at the same time, and I've seen this be a game changer for pair programming or code reviews. Where like if I try to do that on Teams, it's like, well, let me show you what I mean, and then it's like a whole like
Yeah.
15-second stop to like switch the screen share around or something like that. Whereas on Google Meet, I think Slack might do this as well in their huddles feature, but you both just have your screens up, and it's just like, well, no, this is what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
That's
It's
useful.
just,
That's cool. I didn't know that.
yeah. Yeah, so if you're like in a virtual setting, it makes it feel more like you're sitting right next to the person looking at their screen and they're looking at your screen.
That's awesome. I'm gonna try that next time.
Yeah.
All right, Joshua, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Renee.
Thank you for listening to The Bounding Box today. Please subscribe for more content.